Uncover the secret behind answered prayers in our latest video. Is it possible for a simple belief to transform reality? Immerse yourself in the teachings of Neville Goddard and explore the hidden power of faith. Are you ready to be the creator of your destiny? Have you witnessed how a prayer receives an answer? The certainty that our supplications are heard and attended to is something that many yearn for. Therefore, it seems pertinent to dedicate a moment to explore the reasons behind prayers that find an answer and those that seem to vanish without a trace. There is a principle that states, when you pray, believe that you have already received, and so it shall be. Faith in having already received is the imposed requirement. Without this belief, our petitions will not find an echo. An answered prayer suggests that, as a result of it, actions are triggered that would not otherwise take place. Thus, the one who prays becomes the driving force of the action, the guide of the mind, and the granter of their own desire. However, this burden of responsibility is something that many shun, as it seems to be humanity's hidden fear. Everything that exists is governed by natural laws. Nevertheless, between the supplication and its answer, the connection seems to blur. It might appear that God chooses to answer or ignore our pleas, leaving us in uncertainty. The human mind still resists the idea that God operates under his own laws. How many truly understand that there is a cause and effect relationship between prayer and its answer? Let us consider the method used to heal the 10 lepers, narrated in chapter 17 of the Gospel according to St. Luke. What draws attention in this account is the strategy employed to strengthen their faith to the necessary level. We are told that the lepers begged Jesus for compassion, that is, for their healing. Jesus instructed them to present themselves before the priests, and on the way, they were healed. According to Mosaic law, a cured leper had to be examined by a priest to certify their healing. Jesus tested the faith of the lepers and provided them with a means to elevate their faith to its highest expression. Refusal to go implied a lack of faith and, therefore, the impossibility of healing. But by obeying, the full understanding of what their act implied would be revealed in their consciousness as they progressed, and this powerful thought would be the catalyst for their healing. Thus, as they went, they were cleansed. Probably, on more than one occasion, you have heard that inspiring hymn that says, "What peace we often forfeit, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer." Through experience, I have come to this profound conviction, reflecting on the essence of prayer. I firmly believe in the practice and philosophy of what is commonly called prayer, although not everything labeled as such truly is. Prayer is, in essence, the act of elevating the mind towards what is sought. The first step is always to rise. We elevate our mind towards what is desired. This is achieved by assuming the feeling that the desire has already been fulfilled. How would you feel if your prayer was answered? Well, adopt that feeling until, in your imagination, you live what you would live in reality if your desire manifested. Praying involves a mental action, keeping the attention fixed on the idea of the desire already realized until it occupies our entire mind, displacing any other thought. This does not mean that prayer is a mental effort or an act of will. On the contrary, it must be clearly distinguished from an act of will. Prayer is an act of surrender, of submission to the feeling of the fulfilled desire. If a prayer does not receive an answer, the problem lies in the prayer itself, and usually misdirected effort is to blame. Confusion arises when prayer is confused with an act of will, instead of contrasting it with it. The golden rule is to avoid any effort. By doing so, you will intuitively adopt the correct attitude. Creativity does not result from will, but from deep receptivity and sensitivity. Acceptance of the desired end finds the means for its realization. Maintain the feeling of the answered prayer until this state predominates in your mind, setting aside any other state of consciousness. It is not the will that we must cultivate, but the imagination and the ability to keep the attention fixed. Effective prayer avoids conflict and, above all, must be simple. Its greatest adversary is effort. The powerful yields to the gentle. The treasures of heaven are not conquered by force, but are received as a gift. In divine silence, following the path of least resistance, spiritual and physical forces flow. We act under the premise that we already possess what is desired, for everything we long for already resides within us, waiting to be recognized. recognizing it is the necessary step to materialize our desires. Our supplications are heard if we adopt the feeling of the fulfilled desire and persevere in that belief. A moving example of an answered prayer I experienced in my own home. A charming lady, who had come from afar, visited me to talk about prayer. Having no one to leave her 8-year-old son with, she brought him along. During our conversation, the boy seemed distracted playing with a toy truck. At the end, he expressed his desire, a puppy, imagining himself hugging it every night. His mother explained the difficulties in fulfilling his desire, but he, with conviction, affirmed that he had learned to pray. And so it was. Months later, in an awareness campaign about pet care, the boy's essay, among thousands, was awarded a puppy by the mayor. The little one had lived in his imagination the reality of his fulfilled desire. The Bible teaches us the importance of persistence in prayer. Jesus posed a parable about the insistence at midnight for bread for an unexpected friend. Although initially the request is rejected, perseverance overcomes resistance. The key word is perseverance. Imagining ourselves in the desired situation leads us to assume the results of our actions. Not doing so frees us from any result. Living in the imagination what we wish to experience in reality is to assume the result of that act. The omission of this imaginative act keeps us free from its consequences. When you lift up your prayers, have the conviction that you receive what you pray for, and it will be granted to you. It is necessary to persevere until you reach your friend on a higher plane of consciousness. You must persist until your sensations of the fulfilled desire possess all the sensory vividness of reality itself. Prayer is a lucid and directed dream. If we yearn to pray effectively, we must focus our attention to contemplate the world as it would be perceived by us if our plea were answered. Sustained attention is not an extraordinary skill, but the mastery of imagination. We must expand our senses, observe our transformed relationship with our surroundings, and trust in that observation. The optimal way to observe it is to be intensely aware of it. In other words, we can, by listening as we listen and looking as if we saw, truly hear voices and witness scenes from within us that would otherwise not be audible or visible. With our attention focused on the desired state, the external world fades away, and then the universe, like the music that accompanies a new scene, transmutes all its dissonances into harmonies. Life is not a battle, but a surrender. Our prayers are answered by the forces we invoke, not by those we exert. If this content resonated with you, comment it as done. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. While the eyes perceive, the soul remains blind, for the world that drives us is the one we imagine, not the world that surrounds us. We must give our entire being to the sensation of being the noble being we desire to be. If anything is reserved, the plea is fruitless. We are often deprived of our goal by our own eagerness to possess it. We are called to act under the premise that we are already the individual we would be if we had reached our objective. If we do so effortlessly, experiencing in imagination what we would experience in the flesh if we had achieved our goal, we will discover that, indeed, we already possess it. The healing touch lies in our attitude. We need not change anything but our disposition towards it. Assume a virtue if you have it not. Assume the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Pray for my soul. More things are achieved through prayer than this world dreams of. It is not the world around us to which we must give our entire being to the sensation of being the noble being we long to be. If anything is withheld, the plea is in vain. Often, we are deprived of our goal by our own endeavor to possess it. We are invited to act under the assumption that we are already the individual we would be if we reached our objective. If we do so without effort, experiencing in imagination what we would experience in the flesh if we had achieved our goal, we will discover that, in fact, we already possess it. The healing touch resides in our attitude. We need not transform anything but our disposition towards it. Assume a virtue if you have it not. Assume the feeling of your desire realized. Pray for my soul. More things are achieved through prayer than this world dreams of. Therefore, effective prayer is not a mere act of petition, nor is it an attempt to alter the will of an external deity. It is an act of alignment and attunement with a desired reality that already exists in potential. It is the art of assuming the feeling of the fulfilled desire not only as a possibility, but as a present reality in the realm of imagination. This assumed state, when maintained with faith and without the interference of effort or doubt, manifests in the physical world naturally and effortlessly, following the principle that the external reflects the internal. In this context, imagination becomes the most powerful tool at our disposal. It is not about fantasizing in an uncontrolled manner, but about consciously directing our imagination towards the realization of our deepest longings. Imagination, guided by faith and sustained by persistence, has the power to transform our lives in ways we can barely begin to comprehend. The central teaching of Neville Goddard emphasizes that we are creators in this world, not mere spectators or victims of external circumstances. Our external reality is shaped by our beliefs and internal states. Therefore, transforming our external reality requires a transformation in our internal perception and in the nature of our thoughts and emotions. The practice of prayer, as conceived by Goddard, is a practice of personal transformation that invites us to take responsibility for our reality, recognizing that we are the sole architects of our life experience. This perspective empowers us and frees us from the feeling of helplessness that often accompanies the belief in external forces controlling our lives. In summary, prayer, as understood by Neville Goddard, is much more than requesting help or divine intervention. It is a creative process of alignment with the desired state, a practice of active imagination and unwavering faith that allows us to manifest our highest visions on the material plane. By assuming the feeling of the realized desire and living from that state, we invite miracles into our lives, not because we beg for them, but because we align ourselves with the natural law of manifestation, where everything we long for is already ours in the realm of imagination. Effective prayer, therefore, involves a total immersion in the desired state, a complete surrender to the feeling of being what we long to be. It requires a voluntary suspension of disbelief, a willingness to embrace the imagined reality as if it were as real and tangible as the world we perceive with our physical senses. This practice is not an escape from reality, but an immersion in a deeper and more fundamental reality, the reality of creative consciousness. As we cultivate this practice, we begin to experience remarkable changes in our lives. Situations that previously seemed impossible to resolve begin to transform in surprising ways. Doors that were once closed open, and opportunities that once seemed unattainable become accessible. These changes do not occur because we have forced the universe to submit to our will, but because we have aligned our will with the creative will of the universe. However, it is important to note that this practice is not a magic formula for instantly obtaining everything we desire. It requires patience, persistence, and unwavering faith. It requires a willingness to let go of attachment to outcomes and trust in the process. It requires a deep understanding that time and space are constructs of the mind, and that in the realm of imagination, everything is possible here and now.